Thank you very much, Mr. Terry. Thank all of you for your opening statements, and I will kick off my questions really for the panel. We see a lot of consistency across all segments of what the testimony has been. What we've seen in administrations as they come in during that transitional period, depending on what their political priorities might be, we've seen disruptions in the permits that have already been issued, and that's what we're seeing with the Rhode Island projects and others. So I think all of these projects have gone on, whether it's the MVP pipeline or others, have gone through the permitting processes, and we're already under construction, some of them almost at completion phase. So I'll start with you, Mr. Bechtel. Could you briefly address how the lack of uncertainty in the permitting process and the treatment of properly awarded permits during presidential transition periods can hurt your investment planning and, in turn, consumers and households economy-wide?
Thank you, Chairman Capito, for the excellent question. Yes, uncertainty disrupts workforce planning, investment, communities, and families. My colleague and friend, Mr. Booker, spoke about that, particularly on the workforce side. Predictability matters for all of these constituents in the process. And I think it's fair to say that rather than any one project, this is about how the whole system works, including what happens after a permit is issued and what happens with litigation. Something that Brent can speak to as well is that for these kinds of projects, in our case, for example, we're typically making investments in training and hiring and partnering with vocational schools in the area, doing housing studies ahead of time to make sure we mitigate impacts on local housing for big projects. That all can happen 18 to 36 months before a shovel ever goes in the ground. And so unpredictability about when we need to get started on that work is a real issue, which is why, again, the BRT's primary goals around this are efficient, predictable, and a durable result that stands after the permit has been issued.
Yeah, let me ask you a quick follow-up question on that. You cited two projects in your opening statements, one in Australia, one in Canada. You're a worldwide company. Are there any other countries that have to live with the unpredictability of already permitted projects getting yanked because of political priorities? Does this happen everywhere else or not really?
I'm trying to think of examples of other countries. I will point out, I deliberately picked the Australia-Canada examples because I don't think any of us would say those are countries that cut corners when it comes to environmental and social protections. And so I think they're leading examples that you can achieve efficiency, speed, scale, while really having important community engagement and environmental protections up front in the process.
Mr. Booker, if you could frame the question on the uncertainty, what does this do with the worker? I think you did it when you were here before. I remember quite well your impassioned statements on, that means I'm not working, I'm not getting paid. So
I mean, that's the bottom line, is that it takes time to get the skills you need, whether it's building offshore wind, whether it's building a pipeline, a natural gas power plant, a nuclear plant, whatever the energy source is. It's actual people who have to go build that and have to apply skills to do that. And it's our job to partner with our contractor partners to create registered training apprenticeship systems to get the skill sets that are needed to produce a skilled craftsman to build that project safely. And when a project is built and it's being built, when it's financed, whether it's privately or publicly financed, it's permitted, people move. Our workforce is transient in some cases. A lot of times it's local as well, but they will move to that job, move their family, because they know they have a 2, 3, 4-year job to build that energy infrastructure. And to have the whim of somebody with a pen in their hand to say, you know what, I don't like that energy source, completely disrupts their life, their livelihood, their family's livelihood.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Madam Senator. From our industry's perspective, we're eager to deploy billions of dollars of capital to build these major infrastructure projects, and we face a real gauntlet to bring them to completion. Everybody agrees that there should be a robust environmental review system, but what really challenges the industry is when you get approval, but the approval does not equal finality, or even when you are in compliance, that does not end litigation, and we have a long history of several examples of projects meeting exactly that fate, and it really complicates and prevents our ability to build the infrastructure in the first place.
So basically, what you're saying is the uncertainty and unpredictability that possibly could come from political priorities, if you load that on top of the judicial review piece, almost becomes an unbearable load in some cases.
That's absolutely right. It's a challenge not just for projects that are going through the process, but it chills the decision even to
Right.
propose new projects.
Right, and as we heard Mr. Bechtel say, 2.4 trillion is ready to be deployed. Ms. Hopper?
Thank you. I think I will agree with everything my colleagues said and add sort of the impact on consumers, right? So regardless of whether it happens prior to approval or especially if it happens after, those electrons are baked into the grid planning. And if those go away, we all know what happens. Our prices go up, right? Because there's a scarcity of a really much needed commodity. And so the impact on homeowners, on businesses, on all of us is pretty impactful if these projects are no longer either not approved in the first place or even more egregiously permits are pulled.
Right, Mr. Terry?
I think in a couple of ways, and certainly agree with all the other witnesses' comments. I think from a state perspective, the energy offices are deeply engaged in grid planning, energy system planning, delivered fuels, et cetera. When they look out at their resources, both natural resources, human resources, and how they can deliver reliable energy in their state, how they can help their governors and legislatures make this happen from an affordability perspective, the unpredictable nature of federal permitting is essentially a hidden tax. As the delays happen, that's certainly true for large organizations, hyperscalers, et cetera, we read so much about, but for individual homeowners, for farmers, for small businesses, consumers, many of whom don't have resources, that hidden tax we don't really tally. And I think that's something we're missing in addition to the obvious national competitiveness and security issues.